6:02, I'll call to order the June 9th Policy Subcommittee. Meetings being recorded by Franklin Matters. Real quick, just a roll call. Reis Hansen.
Present.
Al Charles. Here. Dr. Rogers.
Here.
And Assistant Superintendent Paula Marano.
Here.
And Steve Sherlock. Here. Good measure. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so have a couple of the approved policies. One actually, I think, one quick note with JRE. I'm sure you guys have seen the email that came through, and I bet it'll be in the superintendent's report. But Friends of Fletcher made a $20,000 donation to the state championship signage.
Fantastic.
And so I know that balls are all rolling already, but it's always fantastic. Like, this is something that came out of policy just a couple of months ago. We wrote this concept into reality, and then now here we are actually with financial backing to kind of make it happen, which is terrific. And then just in terms of approved policies, we had the facility rentals and the emotional support dog. I think there was any additional updates needed for those. Perfect. So we have a couple items on the agenda, but first, it was something that kind of came up yesterday or late Sunday night. But so if you might be able to, Ms. Marano, if you want to.
Sure, be happy to. So DESE put forth new regulations in June 2025 regarding the use of timeout practices in Massachusetts. These regulations will become in effect on August 17th, 2026. They have provided to districts some general guidance back in February, and one piece of this is we need to update our policy JKAA with the new definitions of seclusion, as well as the different safeguards that need to be put into place, clarify the definitions of timeout, the requirements for the use of timeout, as well as the different, as I said earlier, the safeguards to put in place to reduce the use of seclusion, such as emergency intervention, parental notification, weekly and monthly reviews of the data, as well as documenting and reporting the use to DESE. So it's quite the layout. So I went to our attorneys. I did receive the policy this past week, and this is the policy that they drafted for us. It's a little bit more in depth than the one that MASC had. So I just need to bring this forward for your review and possible approval.
First, any kind of overall general questions?
Can you highlight the kind of significant changes compared to what we've had?
Sure. Basically, this is, as I said, it goes more in depth with the definition of seclusion and the use of seclusion and timeout spaces. So it goes, basically, it's prohibited to use seclusion. And then if you are going to use seclusion for students, it gives you the criteria of when that would be okay, but also the documentation that has to take place prior to using seclusion, such as consent from the parent, medical documentation that it's not going to cause psychological harm or physical harm, and then what other processes and what other approaches you're going to put into place to prevent you from using it going forward, and then the updated documentation. As a result of this policy, DESE did provide some federal grant money. We did receive $50,000. With that $50,000, we're using it for education, for professional development, as well as some supplies and materials to help our teachers better understand some proactive strategies such as de-escalation and Tier 1 approaches to prevent dysregulation and behaviors in the classroom, as well as some other tools such as fidgets and calm spaces in the classroom that the kid can just take a chill in the chill zones and whatnot. So really improve our Tier 1 practices. So we will be doing that. We've already taken an inventory of different supplies that we need to purchase for the teachers to increase their inventory, but also we'll provide the PD and coaching next school year. So Tina and I have been working with some outside providers.
Yeah, and one thing I would just add is that Paula secured that grant, and we were one, I think, of only 78 districts. Correct. In the state of Massachusetts who did. So
yes, many of the area districts did not receive any grant money whatsoever. we're fortunate enough that we were able to use those monies to actually get outside providers to come in and do some coaching and some professional development.
Good. Thank you for securing that grant.
One, had we anytime recently had like those like seclusion rooms?
We do have timeout spaces in let's see, almost every building except with the exception of the high school. It is used at the elementary level, and when I say seclusion, I mean there's usually adults in the room with them, so we're not locking the doors and not keeping an eye on the student. It's just a calm space outside of the classroom in the hallways that the students might go into, which just has some bean bags and some pads that we can do to help the student regulate.
Okay, I remember on a tour seeing.
Yes, we do have calm rooms. So we just need to look at those rooms. There's criteria now to make sure that they're safe, which all of our rooms are, because I do inspect them every year. But just make sure that they're safe and there's nothing on the walls that can cause harm or anything like that. They're in good shape and whatnot.
Okay.
So.
I remember a friend, a while ago, but that worked in a school district that had one of those. It was effectively a padded room,
Right.
a small little one. The student would go, they would close the door. So that's not in Franklin.
No, we don't have padded rooms, and if anything, they're just regular rooms with not much in them. They're really pretty bare, and like I said, there's some bean bags, some different stuffies and de-escalation tools in there.
Okay.
So.
And then something else. This is on page 3. Just had a question or maybe a suggestion. Under prohibitions, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and then there's a specific line: prone restraints as defined by the state are not used in Franklin. But then underneath it, it's a number of restraints, including prone restraints, that are strictly prohibited in Franklin public schools. Do we need to list that twice? That prone restraints aren't used in Franklin and they're also prohibited by Franklin?
Probably not. It's probably the attorneys being super diligent.
Extra. Okay. Then I won't strike it, but maybe just I'll add a comment to see if the attorneys are comfortable with removing that line, just to.
So I put a comment on page 4 regarding letter A on that page. During the administration of a restraint, a staff member shall continuously monitor the physical status of the student, including skin temperature, color, and respiration. And I didn't know if it was helpful to specify it be an additional staff member other than the one
Providing the restraint, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because on the one hand, I can imagine a situation where this restraint might be appropriate when there's only one staff member present to provide it, but that in an ideal situation, they would have backup as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
An additional person.
Typically, and anytime there's any restraint, there's always a second staff member around, if not a third or a fourth. But yes.
So maybe it could say during administration of a restraint, an additional staff member.
Yeah, that's
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
It should
Okay.
be specified.
Yep.
It must be an additional staff.
Sure.
No. Thanks, Steve. And then down on page 10, we highlighted already to be aware, but insert link to complaint form
Yep.
here. By the time that this goes to the full school committee, will we have that link live just so we can see what that
Yes,
looks like?
I have a regular form. I just want to put it into a Google form to make it easier access for
Absolutely.
our families and community members. I was in the process of doing that.
data on how often restraint is applied?
We do.
How frequently is it applied?
It depends. There are some students where it is a daily occurrence in certain situations. So we have to document it on our behavior incident reports, and then we also submit that data to DESE every year. Well, on a weekly basis, and then I have to certify it at the end of the school year. So.
Have you ever had a concern with how restraint has been applied?
No.
I don't think anything else stands out text-wise to me. Look straightforward.
I think the only other last one might be in the complaint procedure. Only the bottom, just the complaints must be filed within 60 school days of the event. Want to change it, like in order for the district to investigate, the complaint must be filed.
Sure.
Just so that if folks 65 days or really beyond have a complaint, at least there's a record of it, but we're acknowledging the district is not going to.
Yep. Okay, I like that.
Any other questions, comments? Then I'll entertain a motion to bring this to a first read to the full school committee.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Seeing none, vote will come on a motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Now just kind of moving down the list. No, actually, this is from the last time, the intentional use of technology. Is that just still kind of like an ongoing conversation right now?
Yes, so we'll kind of speak to it a little bit tonight during the AI presentation. And then there are some community, we'll speak to this again, but I won't bury the lead to save it till tonight, but families filled out the AI survey in a variety of ways, and as we expected and we're hoping, many families have family members who are in the technology industry, are well-versed in AI, maybe even in an AI field, are in different, we've actually had a parent who was at a school council meeting and reached out to their principal, and the principal connected that family member with the Office of Teaching and Learning. So we're starting to kind of connect with families as well. So we will be looking to connect with more families in July, just as it relates both to AI, but also as we think about technology use and instruction, time and learning and things of that nature in the classroom. We are continuing as the Office of Teaching and Learning to really do a deeper dive into our curriculum at each grade level to say, how are we defining technology use in the classroom, and what is it, we've invested in this, curriculum A, B, C. What does that curriculum that is research-based say ought to be used in the classroom, and being very intentional about, I think someone brought up, when there's intention behind putting a student at a Chromebook versus having, I think maybe Reis, it was you, versus having them sit on the floor and interact and play a game with one another. So we're doing that curriculum dive, and then we're planning to reach out to some families through those contacts that we've now kind of made connections with this July, and then doing some real deeper work with teachers as they enter back in next year in schools. So we can expect more. I can keep you updated as a whole school committee as well. But we would anticipate similar to AI, some guidance coming out as it relates to screen time technology use within the next school year. SDPA.
I don't know what that
Sorry, so any software tool we bring in for students has to have a student data privacy agreement. So we partner with Tech Collaborative, and they work to ensure that that exists for us before we put anything in front of students. The things that we may put in front of students that don't have that SDPA, the student data privacy agreement, parents have to sign off on at the beginning of the year. So that are tools like YouTube, Google Maps is one of them, like our Google Suite. Google Maps is separate of Google Suite. Trying to think back to the acceptable use from the beginning of the year, but let's just use those two as examples. So we're even having conversations about those, to your point of student privacy. What's the intention and purpose behind that tool's usage? Do we want this to be a choice, or is this something that we don't even have as a choice? So we're starting to have those conversations too, as it relates to the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks are the guiding principles that we use to educate students at every grade level. And so how do those, when we're investing in curriculum tools, how do those support those curriculum tools or not? And being very deliberate about what we say yes to, what we put out as options.
That's great. I actually did not. So I remember we talked about SDPAs last time, so I did know it, but didn't recognize the acronym. It's a little bit alarming that there's not an SDPA for Google products, considering. There is, but I think I'll double check this, but I believe Google Maps is separate from our whole Google Suite is absolutely, and so in Gemini, that's an AI tool that is in Google Suite, also abides by the student data privacy agreement. I think just its Maps sits separate and away from that, but I'm going to confirm that. Yeah, actually, this is a strange one.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't want to alarm people or folks that might be listening or you all. Our Google Suite is absolutely adheres to our student data privacy agreements.
Well, that is good. Very good. But I appreciate your diligence about it and your looking into this. I know it's a lot of effort, and I think it's certainly meaningful to me personally. I think given Carolyn's involvement and the parents who are talking to her, who have connected to me or other community members through her, it seems like it's meaningful to a lot of people in the community.
Yeah, and I think the research is there. There is real reason to pay this close attention and just be intentional with the time we have with students.
That's always, I love that word as well. Just the intentionality of not kind of going on autopilot with all the stuff that's coming out of us. And also not, we'll see with the AI, not putting our heads in the sand, but just kind of being intentional about everything that's happening out there. So, okay. Thank you very much. Unless any other kind of questions, comments. The next two, we got CL Administrator Report and CM School District. So these are some of the older policies that Al identified in that spreadsheet. And we can start with CL Administrator Report. And a lot of the stuff, some really might not be necessary anymore, especially we'll look into Administrative Report. There's no longer an MASC policy, or maybe there might not have ever been an MASC policy. This could have been something Franklin adopted themselves. But so just as we kind of start to tackle some of those old ones, gives us an opportunity. It might just be nothing more than, yep, we put eyes on this looks good. It might be sweeping changes. It also might be completely just removing it because it's not necessary anymore. So we'll start with CL Administrative Reports. If anyone has any questions, comments, thoughts.
So for this one, I mean, I know it's commonplace, like, do we still need this?
I don't know if you want to.
I read it and it seems like that would be like when the school committee would like write a letter to the superintendent to say, like formally request, like now everything's all email documented and there's a legal requirement in an IT department that handles all these records. So I don't necessarily know how needed it is anymore.
And I think the way in which I would say the superintendent operates with his public reports through school committee meetings, I think is very transparent. I think covers a lot of this. And to your point, things being in digital formats, posted online, I think there's less of a rationale for statistical information off, that last piece there. So again, to Dave's point, there's no MASC policy. I don't see an immense need to keep something like this, but that's within your purview.
Yeah, I certainly will entertain a motion to strike this. I will say if we do remove this, though, it's going to make it on the spreadsheet that we actually tackled less. Because now all of a sudden the denominator's going to be...
We'll keep it on there somehow.
But I'll entertain a motion to remove CL administrative reports from our school committee policy. If there's a motion.
So moved.
All right, a second.
Yeah, second.
Debate, discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So now we'll move on to CM School District Annual Report. And then this one does have a corresponding MASC policy, which I think is relatively in line, not verbatim. The one addition that we have, a bit more local, is the inclusion of the town clerk. This report to be filed with the town clerk for the annual report. But open the floor for discussion, questions, comments.
The Commissioner of Education is the state position. Is that correct?
Yeah.
No concerns with this. I'm gonna keep it as is.
And so the only thing that I had in this, typically the school committee will also have an inclusion in the annual report. I don't know if we necessarily need to draft it into policy. It's just something that, Dee or others would just reach out to the chair and say, hey, we need this drafted. Here's last year's version. Clean it up. And then it gets tossed out before us at the school committee. So it's not necessarily policy. It's just something that's just a protocol that's just been done. We can include it and codify it in policy or just leave it as is.
Yeah, and you're referring to the narrative?
Yeah, it's a small little narrative, and it also will sometimes include descriptions about some of the subcommittees that are out there and the different subcommittees, like what they do. So there's usually like a little paragraph that says, here's what policy does, here's what. But my understanding is, I think we've all been copying Dr. Bergen for about a decade now, with little tweaks here and there. So that would be my only thought, if that's needed to be added, or if we're happy to leave it just with as is.
I mean, I'm fine with it as is. I mean, it's just as the committee chooses to do so.
Yeah.
My thought would be to update our language to just mirror the mask language. It's a little different, but it's a little broader. And we're held to the mask policy anyway. We may as well mirror the language, right?
We always side by side. We're
I'm gonna copy and paste it just in here so
Oh,
you can
thank
see
you.
it on one.
Yeah, it's like moving back.
I know, I'm just gonna paste it right below, and then I'm gonna just left justify these, because this is just...
killing you, yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything because it seemed too nitpicky, but
So one thing, when it comes to, we're not beholden to MASC policy. What happened is they draft up a whole bunch of stuff, and then they'll send out like their updates, and it's always a great refresher. And so it gives us the opportunity to say, hey, these are people who have also spent a lot of time on it, and rather than us reinvent the wheel, we had this right at the end of our first term. And we went and we discussed everything, and I remember Denise Spencer had a text going with Tracy Nova, who was like, ooh, that stuff that you've been working on for the last week and a half, we're going to come out with our own policy that we could have just adopted and taken. So we never have to follow exactly what they do, but at the same time, if it's there, it's already been vetted, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and Reis, I mean, the section that I highlighted, it's the same intent as what we wrote because the town clerk's annual report is open to the public, same audience, so it's the same outcome. It's the same. It's just not the same words.
It just gives the front coach flair to it.
Works for me then.
All right, so we're going to keep it left justified.
Keep it left. I'm going to actually work on the spacing because I don't like that either. Right now.
But then otherwise, we can leave it as is, but then update to say it's now been looked at after 12 years.
After 12 years, we left justified the policy.
Yeah, there we go. It was a long time coming, but we're going to get it done.
Are you?
Okay, perfect.
I will just give a heads up. I needed to request access to SC norms and procedures.
Oh, interesting. Well, so
I
I'm
know we're
gonna.
not there yet. I just was trying to be proactive.
No, I appreciate it. I just sent out, I'll show you what that one looks like.
PDF, right?
Yeah. I can screen share the old-fashioned way. So really just kind of use this just as like a reference tool. But so Reis, this came up from you a while ago, talking about like good of the order. And so this was a norms and procedures that the chair, Denise Spencer at the time, had kind of drafted up and put together. Al, this was the famous hard stop at 10 o'clock or whenever I'm speaking. And so, but ultimately it has a whole bunch of stuff about how the school committee is supposed to operate. There's a lot of fluff in there. You know, we're supposed to be nice to each other, and we're supposed to follow Robert's Rules of Order, but then other times it starts talking about specifics of Robert's Rules of Order as opposed to just to kind of say this is where we're at. But it also kind of gets to the good of the order. What I wanted to do was to kind of use this just as a jumping off point to slowly start to kind of rebuild some of that stuff, but maybe with a little bit less fluff and be more direct. And so I just shared with everybody, and Steve, yourself included, if you wanted to follow along. But just titled Franklin School Committee Meeting Conduct and Debate Structure. Discussion structure. But it just looks to kind of enshrine a couple of things. The first one is just kind of specifically how during discussion and debate, how the chair will kind of go and recognize different individuals. And it's what we have right now, where it's starting over on the right, kind of works its way in, skips to chair and the vice chair, and then the next round goes over to the left, and then does the same, except a slight addition of also explicitly kind of stating what happens in for virtual members as well. And this is something, just by the way, I spoke, this document spoke with Paul during packet and shared with him as well in advance of this. But just so that way, everybody, ourselves, but also future school committees, this is something that we all kind of adopt. Everybody right out of the gate has that understanding. Just so that sometimes it's, I want to go and, you know, is it my turn, is it not, or I want to throw this out here. So it's just this idea of, let's really try to kind of put this in writing so that way we can try to manage the meeting structures a bit more. This is something I did pull from, I think, that school committee document, but talk about time limits. Not necessarily just whenever I'm talking, the debate stops, but a 5 minutes for the first round of questions and 2 minutes maybe for subsequent. Obviously, that could be up for debate and discussion. But I think if there is something there, it at least makes everybody else a bit more intentional with their questions and their thoughts. If they know, all right, I want to try to kind of limit myself to maybe 5 minutes during this first round of questions or discussion. I'm kind of just giving a quick overview of some of the stuff, that we can kind of jump down. But the other one was, it just kind of talked about number 2, the under specialized agenda milestones. Basically, good of the order is exactly as it is right now, but it's not in this 20-plus document that's 3 years old. We could just kind of highlight it right out of the gate to say this is what good of the order is, here's where it begins. But also points of Panther Pride. Just an opportunity, kind of like what the town council, we spoke about this I think at the meeting, they have their councilor comments, they have it at the beginning of the meeting, if we need that, but just an opportunity for all of us, 7, to talk about stuff that's just happening that we're excited about. Because I know sometimes that's also what happens is people will, myself included, will shoehorn in a topic of conversation into the FHS representatives, maybe it fits better in the superintendent's report or wherever it might be. So I think if there's just, everybody knows at a point in the meeting, we're going to have this opportunity for folks to kind of go and talk about events that are happening, things that were really great for them. It also might help just kind of keep the meeting flowing a little bit more too.
Yeah. That points of pride is kind of precisely what I had in mind. Before I was on the committee, and in the beginning of my time on the committee, I had conceptualized good of the order as what you're describing Panther Pride as like that opportunity for committee members to just take a couple minutes to highlight or speak to things that are important to them, whether it's future agenda items or just like the softball game is awesome. And so it came up for me when I wanted to recognize the theater department, and there was not like a time to do so. And I was like, but I didn't want to wait till 2 weeks, and then like the formation was 2.5 weeks ago. So yeah, I think if we have that as a regular thing, that would give the opportunity to all of us that I think is really helpful. Because we don't always have something like that. We don't always have something to say, but when we do, it's nice to have it as a good time to say.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it might make it so that way. I know I personally, I've written down some things, and then I'd waited and been like, oh, wait a minute, now somebody just mentioned this, so I feel like I could use it as a segue. And it's like, we don't need to be doing that. And so that way, everybody kind of understands this is the point. We'll be able to kind of go, broadcast what we want, but also, and it might be another discussion, kind of talk about agenda items, because that is a policy, but if it's at the bottom versus at the top, it just makes it so that way everybody who actually has business with school committee can go and do it and go home, and we don't have to wait until we're all done talking before the rest of their business begins.
I think it's totally fine for that to be at the end.
The only feedback, I have 2 points. I think maybe it's after new business versus prior to new business. And then maybe just keeping the section I had outlined a little bit more general. I don't have the words right now, but just so it's broader that we can cover things that are really more to the benefit of the district or sort of.
Okay, with the points of like Panther Pride, just so that way people don't feel like they're also kind of put in this box. If this is the only thing I can say, of just exactly. That makes sense. Steve,
just from experience, certainly watching other committees and this one, as well as other committees in the town, recommendation for reconsideration of the terminology. I agree in the approach, but good of the order is not readily apparent to anybody as to what it means, nor is Panther Pride. I mean, it does, but if it's committee comments, you can say committee comments focused on Panther Pride events and or other community events and cover it that way. But if this is going to be part of the policy and new people are going to come in, they're going to it doesn't clearly jump out and say, that's exactly what you're trying to do, just make it a little bit easier yourself in future committees to just, better explain, and if you keep good in the order, just better explain what it is, or, modifications to whatever. I don't have the appropriate language for that one. I could go study it and come back, but committee comments, I think, would be simpler at least, and then you can still reference, Private Panther or whatever there in the description to get to that point.
I think that's great feedback. Does it make sense to add committee comments to our agendas and then scratch go to the order? That go to the order comments would go into committee comments, and the private comments would go into.
You can incorporate that way.
Yeah, I would say, because at that point, like, what's the difference between? Yeah.
I also wanted to, I'll let you finish typing.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. With the time limits, the language saying debate on any motion is strictly limited to 5 minutes. I feel like we don't violate that guideline so often, but I also feel like to say it's strictly limited is kind of inflexible.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe language that says when at the chair's discretion, the chair may limit question or speaking time, but no member shall be allotted fewer than 5 minutes, and no member should be allotted fewer than any other member, or something like that. So, what do you think?
I understand what you're saying, and then it gives the chair flexibility to then say, if we need to expand that,
Right.
I have the discretion to do so. The committee has the
Like, I
discretion.
feel like in practice, it doesn't come up too often for us. Like, I know we all can talk a lot sometimes, but that maybe Dave will be the one that hits the time.
Let's stop it.
Right, but there are some nights when it's going to be really important. And we've got a lot, and tonight might be an example of that. We've got a lot to get through. Executive session at the end, there's a lot that we're doing, and then other nights when there's just one thing we're covering, and do we need to strictly adhere to 5 minutes, or else we're in violation of our own policies?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
From a public perspective, feedback, but speaking on behalf of the others, I would anticipate if they were here would say something similar. Time restrictions would only be needed if the membership is repetitive in their comments. So if somebody's going to say something and somebody else is going to say something, and maybe just a very slight variation, that does not advance the conversation. The meeting just, becomes tedious. But generally, in my opinion, the conversations are moving forward. And I think without codifying the time bucket, giving the chair or acting chair appropriate saying, just keep your comments to the new pieces and move it forward would be a workaround. Otherwise, you're potentially at risk getting into a nice, flowing, great conversation, and it's going to take 6 minutes, and somebody's going to get cut off.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. I also think about, in the House where time limits, like the U.S. House of Representatives, where the time limits are more important. How people will ask a question, the person starts to answer, and then they're getting cut off by it. I ask her because they need the time. And then there's a whole lot that goes into that dynamic anyway. Oh, that's not us, and I don't want us to ever have to be in a situation.
That's 520 people too. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Where we're telling one of our guests to stop answering the question we've asked because we have more questions to get to.
So how about quick draft? Chair may establish uniform time limits for all members during debate discussion.
That's great language.
Go ahead. I thought it's still just missing something.
I agree. I'm actually just. Let's see.
Because ultimately, chair is facilitating the meeting and is leading it. However, if somebody is going along and it's providing value, right? If there is a reason why we need to reduce their time, I think it should be more of a vote at that point. It's like, are we all in agreement? Yep. We have to cut it now, or do we want to give this person a little more time to speak? You know.
And then, so that one is within just normal Robert's Rules of Order, where they can just kind of go have that conversation. He's like, you could just kind of go and say, all right, we're going to vote to end discussion now. And so, I mean, we could just leave it with a simple link to Robert's Rules of Order. Let's see. Actually go.
Yeah, because I don't plan on filibustering anytime soon.
You say that now. Ditch the time restraint on the subsequent discussion open floor. So now it's just after the first round, then it just goes to an open floor discussion. Where at that point, we've done that before, where it's just if anybody else has any questions, and it's just one or two of us, hopefully. And again, I think with this in and of itself may start to kind of grow to where the school committee norms and procedures were, to an extent, shorter, more direct. But just the idea, I remember when, I don't know how you felt now, but I remember when it kind of came to us, it was just a lot all at once that we were trying to kind of go through. And I thought it would be more helpful if we slowly kind of start to build this brick by brick, to say here's some of the ways to kind of go and guide us. And then if there's additional stuff as it comes up to make the meetings run more efficiently or whatever the situation is, then we can now kind of go and add that on top of this and just kind of keep going. So then that way too, it becomes more bite-sized for all 7 of us to kind of go and understand and manage. Any other discussions, comments, suggestions? So I can kind of, I'll go through this again just to kind of make sure we got the right language that we were looking for. But otherwise, to the tab, I'll entertain a motion to bring this to a first read. All right, second? Second. Discussion, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. And let's see. It might be the last topic that we discussed today, but just the IJOAA field trips.
I would just love a little context, because I know this was another school committee's request.
Yes.
So I can do a little bit of due diligence to come back next time we meet next school year with kind of the information we need to move forward.
And so what we could do is even get it the same with the other one as well.
Yeah.
But with this one, it was actually more, this got brought up by Nadia during, I think, another Good Leave order, but about the possibility of, now the schools are more aligned,
Yep.
The whole field trip process, the permission slips, all the different paperwork that parents and family members kind of have to sign off on, can it be a bit more uniform from K to 12? Or pre-K, if the littles.
And so we're talking about day field trips, not extended and not international travel. The extended field trips.
Yeah, those ones I know
those are separate, but we're
stacked.
talking about students go, well, Roger Williams isn't a good example. Students go to the Museum of Science, students go to walk the Freedom Trail, like those types of experiences.
Yeah, I remember she had like one family member that had kids at, I think, at elementary and middle school, and just the
Okay.
field trips themselves are just, the slips were just wildly different.
Okay.
And is there a way just to kind of make it a bit more uniform across the district? Just for ease and simplicity's sake.
So I think what I'll do, because we do have some uniform procedures, and pamphlets. So I think what I'll do as a next step is connect with each of the building principals to say, when you have a day field trip for club at FHS or, kindergarten students going to wherever locally, what are those? And I'll gather those to see how they differ from the documentation that I have. So I'll do that work.
Okay, that'd be fantastic. And it's a question, is that a separate policy for the field trip slips? Or, because I see the one that we have is more around field trips in general, not the form and documentation.
So I don't think the form itself would be connected to, I think the intent of this policy is to provide guidance around why we go on trips, how we do it, who gets to participate, the safety is ensured, like those types of things. But as far as, how we have like those procedures that live separate, we ensure that the procedures align with the policy. But because that will allow us to tweak things too as we need for.
And then I think what might be great is when we do kind of circle back to this, then we can also kind of do a deep dive into the policy itself. And then now we can say, all right, here's the school committee policy, here's the permission slips that have gone out, everything kind of go with gel. Makes sense.
Okay. And I know this would be something we do for the start of the school year. I think the PCCs typically do field trips, or at least help sponsor them October or later. So I think if we can get this squared away in September, well, at least by the end of September, that'd be ideal. And if making great headway with that, we can't always also reset. At some point in the last meeting, we were like, wait, when does policy meeting? Like we were in, and so we could also always talk about if there's some stuff either that comes up, or we're just making great progress on having this, in sometime over the summer, even if it's a virtual meeting too, to kind of keep it light.
Absolutely.
Then just one last thing, just to kind of put on the radar, it include the ECAB, the access to buildings and grounds. Now, I actually was looking at this because the Horseman Legacy, we did a walkthrough the campus grounds a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that kept coming up was how many amazing, the high school courtyard is gorgeous, and how many different spots we have on our school grounds, and what is open to the public versus what isn't for security reasons. And so I was digging around, and that's where I kind of stumbled across this one here. Yeah. And so just a conversation in the future of, what is available. As we look at this policy, I know it's the buildings and grounds of the blank public schools, so we could also tighten that language up, but more so just so that way we can look at this and have an idea of, what are some of the buildings that are open to the public. And also, this was Bobby DeLorco was at the walkthrough with us, and he was instrumental with the building of the high school. And one of the things he was saying was this is something that will get advertised to the community, that this was their space as well, to vote, to walk on the courts and stuff. And is there a way, or should we, and if so, is there a way that we can advertise that more to the rest of the community to say, hey, everybody, this is your space as well. It's not just for our high school kids. But that's just why I wanted to bring that up, just to kind of get that.
Absolutely, and I would just name during non-school hours when students are in session, because that's kind of become a conversation as well. So just off, just folks using school grounds to walk their dogs. The school's in session and you don't know, But yes, I think, and I'm sure it outlines it in here. I can't pinpoint it in the moment, but it's during non-school hours. And I wonder too, to your point, I understand the sentiment around access to building because it's a public space. So, walk the track, like those types of things. But also, is there a way, or maybe it's not in this policy because we do have other policies, but folks can rent spaces in buildings, and those parts that are accessible for rent are on a website, and maybe there's an opportunity to publicize that here. But I do understand we have other policies that speak to that, so it might not be appropriate, but worth considering.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Any other kind of questions, comments? Then thank you guys. This is a fantastic meeting itself, but also the first school year under our belt for policy. So there's a lot, but there's a lot more to come. So I appreciate everyone's efforts. But with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All right. Second?
Second.
Non-debatable. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you.
We are now producing this in collaboration with Franklin TV and Franklin Public Radio. This podcast is my public service effort for Franklin, but we can't do it alone. We can always use your help. How can you help? If you can use the information that you find here, please tell your friends and neighbors. If you don't like something here, please let me know. Through this feedback loop, we can continue to make improvements. And I thank you for listening. For additional information, please visit franklinmatters.org. If you have questions or comments, you can reach me directly at suresteve@gmail.com. The music for the intro and exit was provided by Michael Clark and the group East of Shirley. The piece is titled Ernesto Mañana, copyright Michael Clark and Tintype Tunes in 2008, and used with their permission. I hope you enjoy. By the way, you can also subscribe and listen to Franklin Matters Radio on your favorite podcast app. Search in podcasts for Franklin Matters.